Hi, I'm Tammy, and I'm 13 years old. Have you ever felt like you swallowed something alive? As if you have something inside you threatening your life? This story happened to me, and the feeling of it still haunts me. Watch this video to the end and find out what will happen to a person if they swallow a poisonous snake. My parents devoted their entire life to biology, so I was interested in exotic animals and insects since childhood. What ordinary children were afraid of were my favorite toys. And instead of bedtime stories, I like to listen to encyclopedias and scientific work of my mom and dad. I always wanted to have an exotic animal at home, but my parents were against it, saying that it could be dangerous and that they had enough of them at work. Until recently, my father was given a small and rare poisonous snake for his birthday. I was thrilled. Of course, I immediately wanted to play with it, but my dad stopped me. He placed the snake in the home terrarium and said that it should not be touched during the adaptation. And he forbade me to take it without permission because it was poisonous. I was upset, but still, I couldn't stand it, and my curiosity took over. Have you ever disobeyed your parents? The next day after my parents left for work, I snuck into my dad's office and played with the snake. I decided to name him Tony, so in secret, I continued to visit Tony every day. But over time, I got bored playing with it alone, and I wanted to show off the snake to my best friend Carl. I decided to prank him, and I really thought it would be fun, but my plan failed. We sat and played our favorite game. I told Carl I was going to get us something to eat, let Tony out of the terrarium, and carried it to my room without being seen. I thought Carl would get scared. We would laugh together and play with the snake. But the prank got out of control. When Carl saw the snake on his leg, he jumped up in horror, screamed loudly. His face turned completely white. He fell to the floor and he began to suffocate. Honestly, I didn't even know what to do, but it was necessary to act quickly. I found a brown bag in the kitchen, ran to Carl, and he started breathing into it, slowly coming to himself. I gave him a glass of water, he drank it, and started yelling at me. It turned out that he couldn't stand snakes, lizards, and all the alike. As a child, he was even allergic to them. He accused me of knowing about it and setting it up on purpose. But I had no idea that Carl had such a fear. We had a big fight. Carl took offense at me and slammed the door. I returned the snake to the terrarium before my parents noticed and went to my room. I was very sad that we had a fight because this has never happened in all of our friendship, so I had nightmares the next night. I was almost asleep, and in my sleep, I thought that something cold was lying on my stomach and beginning to crawl to my head. It crawled right into my mouth, and I couldn't even move. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. I was afraid, and what I saw and felt in the dream seemed very real. I was very scared and quickly ran to look at the terrarium, but it was empty. My legs began to shake, and I clutched my stomach and couldn't move. Was there a little snake inside me now? Just thinking about it made me feel sick, and I ran to the bathroom. Apparently, I didn't close the lid properly yesterday, and Tony just crawled out of the terrarium and into my mouth. Even in the morning, I felt something moving on my lips. It was just awful. I couldn't sleep, walk, or even eat. And it always seemed to me that there was a chill in my esophagus. Something alive. It was as if something cold-blooded had crawled all over it. More and more thoughts came into my head, and I couldn't handle them alone. So the next day at school, I found Carl, asked him for forgiveness, and told him what had happened to me. He was so shocked, as if he had quarreled with me. He started thinking about how to solve this problem. He was worried about me. It was nice, but it looked like he knew about it. I decided not to attach importance to his reaction. Carl told me to go to the doctor right away, started saying that it was very serious and we couldn't solve it ourselves. I burst into tears and said that I would never go to the doctor. I needed a friend's help. Are you afraid of doctors and hospitals? And then we remembered that Carl's mother was a biologist, and she had a very rare book on cold-blooded animals at home. Carl calmed me down, and we ran to his house right after school. We had to do everything before his mother arrived. We snuck into her office and started looking for the right book, and I was getting worse and worse and very sick to my stomach. Carl was worried because his mom's office was a restricted area in the house, and he was always rushing me. But I couldn't move any faster. I was constantly dizzy from fear. Unexpectedly for us, the handle of the front door turned. Carl's mom came home early, and she found us in her office. She started yelling at us, and especially at Carl, and even threatened house arrest. But I couldn't let that happen. So I gathered my thoughts and told her everything. She hesitated and seemed less angry, and I thought she calmed down a little too quickly. Maybe she was just worried about me. She said that most likely I need to be examined by a doctor because the snake could damage my esophagus or even poison me. And since the snake was poisonous, it could dissolve in the stomach and the poison would get directly into my blood. It only made me feel worse. I knew it was a lost cause. Everything went too far. I would have to tell my parents. Carl's mother quickly arranged an appointment, and half an hour later, we were on our way to the hospital. I felt worse every minute. I blamed myself for everything. I lost a friend, hid everything from my father, and violated his ban. She said that she would have to tell my parents, but I decided that I would tell them myself. Meanwhile, my stomach was turning. I really thought that the snake poison was already in my blood. I was constantly sick in the car, and I barely made it to the hospital. I was already sitting in line, looking pale and scared, when Carl's mother said that I would probably get a gastroscopy, and if necessary, they would perform emergency surgery. I sat in the corridor and was trembling with fear. I was supposed to be called in for a checkup any minute. And then I saw my parents. They looked very serious and even angry, so I couldn't stand it. I jumped out of my chair and excused myself to my mom and dad. The fear of the examination, the operation, and the whole situation overwhelmed me even more. I immediately told my parents everything. And when I finished and opened my eyes, I saw my dad smiling gently at me. At first, I didn't understand why, and he showed me a jar with a snake. I was shocked. Did I just dream it up and almost drive myself crazy? How could this happen? Suddenly, Dad took the snake out of the jar and held it out to me, and I immediately jumped back, afraid that it might bite me and inject poison. But my father showed me that the snake had no teeth. I didn't understand what was going on, and my parents admitted that I was just being pranked, almost as much as I had pranked Carl. My parents said they wanted me to learn this lesson and never disobey them again for my own safety. Yes, it's hard not to learn. It turned out that Carl had told them all about my joke. I asked where had the snake from the terrarium gone. It turned out that my dad just took it to his lab. I was so glad I hadn't swallowed the snake that I forgot my parents and Carl had taught me a valuable lesson. I was surprised that I didn't notice anything, but apparently my imagination did everything for me, and I couldn't think of anything but the snake. I knew it was all for my own good. I could have hurt Carl with my joke, and my stupidity and curiosity could play a trick on me. Now I avoid my father's office. I try not to stick my nose and hands into everything. And for this behavior, my parents promised to give me my own terrarium with a water snake. If you liked the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Be careful with your imagination, and have a good day!
Hi, I'm Sandy. Have your jokes ever gone so far as to make you scared for your or someone else's life? This is my sister Barbara. We're twins. Once we traded places. We only wanted some fun, but got into a bit of a situation. When we were little kids, our parents divorced and we were split. I stayed with Dad and his new family, and she stayed with Mom and her new husband. We live at a distance, but see each other often. Once we watched a movie where two twin sisters pretended to be each other. We thought it would be fun to do the same. We couldn't believe people would buy it. Dad and my stepmom once had a hiking vacation, and Mom and stepdad were throwing a party. Barbara had always dreamed of a mountain hike, but Mom wouldn't let her. And I've been on a few and was ready to trade places. We swapped our clothes. I gave my sis my favorite red jacket. We also swapped phones. We couldn't believe our parents would buy it, but it was worth a risk. In the worst case, our parents would be angry, nothing more. Or we thought so. Being Barbara was pretty fun. The guests asked me things, and I tried to reply as if I were her. I said I had a boyfriend who read me poetry every day. It was fun at first, but then my discomfort grew. I felt really out of place. I had to wear a pretty but uncomfortable dress. Use stupid table utensils I didn't know names for. People kept talking about stupid stuff like neighbor's new car. No one laughed at my jokes. I saw Mom was worried that the guests were judging me and finding my manners lacking. I didn't know what else to talk about. That hadn't happened to me before. Finally, I apologized, said I wasn't feeling well, and went to bed. I didn't get to sleep. Mom woke me up worried the next morning. Pale and anxious, she sat on my bed and said she had horrible news. I thought our lie was disclosed and was ready for a little scandal, but Mom said that Sandy, that is me, went missing. I was shocked. It must have been a bad joke, but Mom was serious. Have your relatives ever gone missing? Please share in the comments. I was scared. I had to tell Mom of our joke and that I was Sandy and Barbara was with Dad. Mom was horrified. She was unhappy and so worried about my sister, she almost wasn't angry at me. Mom said Barbara had gone tired and nervous quickly, had a fight with Edith, my stepmom, and decided to get back to the town. But she didn't make it home and her phone was off. I didn't get any calls from Barbara as well. I couldn't believe it. I knew she wasn't used to a lot of exercise, and Edith had a weird sense of humor. I hadn't thought it would go so far. But Mom wasn't mad at Edith or me, but at Dad. It looked like he didn't watch over one daughter and lost another. She was worried sick about Barbara. She wasn't used to the forest, could get lost, or worse. Mom and my stepdad and me went to Dad immediately. I was sifting through the possibilities of where Barbara could have gone. When we saw Dad, he was crushed. Edith looked guilty. I was feeling down for myself. If it weren't for our stupid idea, and I wouldn't let her go on a hike, this wouldn't have happened. We all wrecked our brains about what to do next. While there was a rescue operation going on, I started calling all of the friends. It turned out it wasn't for nothing. Martha, our friend, said she'd seen me in the city and even had a few words, though I'd behaved strange. I was going to ask for details, but the police called my parents at that moment. They said a young woman's body had been found in the river, and the description matched. We panicked. Neither of my parents could drive, so we took a taxi. I prayed it wasn't Barbara. We came and saw the body on the grass. The girl wore a red jacket, my jacket. My breath caught. The most horrible few seconds of my life. I looked closer and sighed with relief. It wasn't Barbara. Some other girl in a similar jacket. We were relieved, even though we felt sorry for the girl. And then my phone rang. It was Barbara. She was crying and asking if I was okay. Turned out she saw on the news. The mass media didn't bother to change the name. I was so happy. I wasn't even angry at her. When we got home, Barbara told what had happened. She was mad at Dad and Edith and didn't want to go home to them, but also didn't want to go back to Mom and spoil my fun. So she hitched a ride back to town and wanted to stay in a hotel. She was so upset about the fight with Edith that she drank a sleeping pill and was out for a day and a night. She didn't hear the calls, and when she woke up, she saw the news. We spent this night all together. Barbara and I shared a bed, and my parents slept where they could find a place. A few times I woke up to dreams of having lost her again. Now that it's all over, we decided to see more of each other, and Barbara and I realized that we all have a place, especially us twins. Do you have siblings? Do you have a fear of losing them? Share your stories in the comments. If you want more people to see this video, please like it, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell button to know when we release our next vids. Have a great day, and may your pranks never get out of control.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm 16. Have you ever been very wrong about people? Let me tell you a story about how wrong I was about my own sister. Please watch this until the end and you'll know and see how hard it is sometimes to know somebody well, even if it's someone really close to you. My family is a regular one. Mom is a housewife, dad works in the police force. I have a sister, Kate. She's 26 years old. She's not very outgoing, still single, recently recovered from bad depression and relationships, so that's definitely not what she wants right now. Me, I like socializing, hanging out with my friends a lot. Once, some people I knew invited me to a party. There's this guy named Mark. I can't stand him. He used to hit on Kate and she told him off, after which Mark spread rumors about her being a psycho. I paid him no mind, not wanting to spoil my fun that night. So we jumped into the pool. It was awesome. But then Mark said we shouldn't be swimming in that pool because something horrible had happened here 10 years ago. I just waved all of his blabbering off as usual. He looked pretty hurt and said if I didn't believe him, I should ask my sister because of her. And then he went silent. I felt out of place. Some kids started whispering. Many seemed to know something about my sister that I didn't know. And I didn't understand what was going on. My fun was ruined. So I left for home, trying not to think about it. The next day, I casually asked Kate about the house with the pool and what happened 10 years ago. She just went white and said she'd never been there and knew nothing. I smelled something fishy and was kind of confused. Have you ever thought that your relatives might be lying to your face? Share your stories in the comments. I found an article on the internet about that house and I was shocked. 10 years ago, a guy named Dave died there. He was 16 years old. He threw a party and was found dead in the pool in the morning. It was classified as an accident. I asked Mom about Dave. She never lies. I expected her to tell me. She became sad and said she didn't want to talk about that nightmare. And then she finally caved, saying that Dave and Kate had dated when it happened. Whoa, why would Kate hide her relationship with Dave and lie about never even visiting his house? I went back to that house to find out. One elderly neighbor shared the whole story. That night, there was a lot of noise from the party. She couldn't sleep and remembered it all very well. First, there was screaming, sounds of someone being hit, a splash of water, and a male voice screaming, "Stop, please, Joe, enough!" The next morning, the dead boy was found in the pool. His girlfriend confessed to murder, but her dad was a policeman, so it was hushed down and she was let out. I was floored. It sounded like my sister was that girl. Did Kate really kill Dave and Dad helped her get out of being prosecuted? My sister couldn't have done this, or was I wrong about her all this time? I decided to ring up a friend. He had helped me with a history lesson and I knew he used to be friends with Kate. But when he came for our tutoring sessions, he avoided her. He might know something. I asked him about Dave's death and my sister. He hung up on me as soon as he heard that. I was scared even more. I was so confused. Who do I believe? Is my sister a murderer and Dad covered it up? What other secrets do they keep? Do I even know these people? Should I tell the police? Ironically, I remembered Mark's words. Ask your sister. Exactly, I should stop collecting gossip. I needed to clear things out once and for all. I decided to talk to Kate and asked her to tell me the truth or I'd never be able to trust her. She broke down in tears and told me her whole story. She was dating Dave. At his party, he drank too much and started feeling her up even though he knew she wasn't ready for the next step. They went to the pool to talk. He tried to rip her dress. She slapped him. He lost his balance and fell into the pool. He laughed and called her a moron. She was insulted and went for the door. He yelled, "Don't stop, enough!" And when he tried to get out, he slipped and asked her to give him a hand. She thought he'd try something and left. And in the morning, he was found dead. Perhaps he was too drunk to get out, fell asleep, drowned. Kate thought herself guilty, so she went to the police and confessed to murder. But they knew it was an accident and let her go. Dad wasn't even in town when it happened and was horrified about it when he learned. Kate had a real hard time getting over this. She was depressed for a long time. Couldn't forgive herself for leaving that night. Some people still haven't forgiven her. I felt really sorry for her. Now I knew why she avoided relationships. Things happen, but you shouldn't believe every piece of gossip that you hear. Have you ever been a victim of rumors and gossiping? Please like this story so that more people see it on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel and see our new vids. Have a great day, and please have faith in people you love.
Hi, I'm Catrice, and I'm 19. Have you ever felt like you were really going crazy and losing control of yourself? Watch the story to the end, and you will learn what it's like to live with a split personality. It's always been hard for me to agree with someone else's ideals. It just so happened that the only one who understood me was my grandma and grandpa. We lived in a country house. I was always surrounded by care and loved my old people very much. I didn't think I'd lose them so soon. After that, my parents took me to the city where I still live. I wanted to forget and not remember it. I really missed them though. I tried to distract myself as much as I could. So I went to drama school. After I graduated from high school, I decided to devote myself to acting, so I went to a private academy of arts. I tried my best to get the lead role in the play and did everything possible to be approved. How glad I was when it worked out. Of course, I was terribly nervous. After all, we were going to perform in one of the major theaters in our city. It was like, have you ever had a situation where you felt a huge responsibility that you weren't ready for? You know, that if you screw up, it will put an end to everything you're aiming for. I rehearsed all day, thought about the character of the heroine, and even sometimes entered the role off stage. My family was very supportive, and at rehearsals, everyone said that I was doing great. But it got harder and harder every day. After one of the rehearsals, I was going on a date with my new boyfriend, Kevin. He was studying at the same academy in another faculty. We made an appointment. And then, all I remember is the end of rehearsal. I feel dizzy. I open my eyes and find myself in a square near the academy. I had no idea how I got here or what I was doing. I didn't think much of it because I'd been so tired lately, and I might have withdrawn into myself too much. I hurried to the cafe where we were supposed to meet. I was waiting for him, but apparently he didn't wait for me and left. Feeling nervous, I dialed him. No one answered. So I called our mutual friend Marie, who was studying to be a director, to ask if she knew where Kevin was. She replied that he was at home and was very angry with me. I was very surprised. Was it because I was only 10 minutes late? And then Marie told me that I had lost my mind. After the rehearsal, I didn't seem to get out of character. I yelled at her and told her I didn't know who she was or what she wanted from me. Well, when Kevin called me, apparently to clarify about a date, I was rude to him. Frustrated and depressed, I thanked Marie and went home. I felt really bad there. I laid down on the bed. The room seemed to spin. It seemed that I even heard unfamiliar voices. But I realized that there was no one else in the room. I was scared, so I quickly dialed the first number on the list. It was Marie, but she didn't answer. Then, in a panic, I called my parents, who were away at the moment. My father answered the phone and asked me what was wrong, and I couldn't put two words together. My head was spinning, and I seemed to mumble into the phone. He didn't understand what I wanted from him, so he told me to go to bed. I didn't know what to do. I really felt tired, and probably Dad was right. I was very nervous, and so I decided to go to bed. But when I woke up, it just got worse. I felt as if I'd just had a good night at the bar. My head was pounding, and my throat was starting to feel queasy. I decided to check my phone. Finally, a text from Kevin. Did he write that it was over between us? I couldn't believe my eyes. What did I do wrong? I heard my parents' voice in the kitchen and went down to say good morning. My father answered me dryly, but my mother didn't even look at me. I couldn't understand what was going on. Why was everyone so mad at me? I tried to talk to my mother, but she just didn't say anything. And after that, I burst into tears. My parents rushed to comfort me. Have you ever realized that you can trust your parents with absolutely everything? I told them that something strange was happening to me. Told them about the square and about Kevin. They told me that they came after my call to make sure I was okay. But they didn't find me at home. They waited all night. And when I arrived in the morning, I told them to piss off and went to bed. I didn't remember all that, of course. What was happening to me? They got worried and asked me to stay home today. This request made me sob even more. This was the day I had a performance. They gave in, but asked me to be very careful and call if anything happened. When I came to the dress rehearsal, I met the sidelong glances of the guys. I went straight to Marie and asked if she knew where I was that night. Laughing, she replied that she didn't think I was drunk enough to forget everything. Yesterday, I was at a classmate's party where there were a lot of guys from the academy, and I did crazy things. What? Why didn't I remember that? It was like I wasn't at the party. I felt a hand on my back. This was Derek, a friend from another faculty. Suddenly, his hand slid down my back. Well, shall we continue what happened last night? I pushed him away, startled. I caught a glimpse of Kevin out of the corner of my eye. He walked past me and looked at me with disgust. I wanted to run over and talk to him, but he disappeared into the crowd. Derek grabbed my breast and said that we had been together last night. What? I needed to find Kevin and explain everything to him. But what would I tell him? That I didn't remember cheating on him? Before I could even move, I was grabbed by the arm and dragged to the rehearsal. Then, it was time for the performance. I wasn't ready, but I was ready to play. I wasn't going to let this situation unsettle me. During the performance, I started looking for Kevin. No use. He wasn't there. I felt sick. The hum of voices was growing around me, telling me something, and I no longer realized where I was. The last thing I remembered was the dark. When I opened my eyes, I realized that I was in the park, and in front of me was Kevin with a scared face. I almost screamed with fear. How did I get here? What the hell was happening to me? I burst into tears, covering my face with my hands. Suddenly, I felt warm hands on my shoulders and raised my head. Kevin looked at me sympathetically. He told me that I ran away in the middle of the play, found him here, and said, "Catrice must tell you everything." In tears, I told him everything that had been happening to me all this time. While I was talking, I finally started to realize that I might have a split personality. How else could I explain that? The realization made me gasp. Oh no! I fell to the ground, and it seemed my world had collapsed too. The only support was, well, yes, Kevin. He believed me. He said that he had heard about it. It was a serious mental disorder, and I needed to see a doctor. I was so scared, but at least I wasn't alone. After a long time, I finally felt a little better. Later, the doctor confirmed the diagnosis, a personality disorder. I didn't know what was going to happen next and how I was going to live with it. How am I going to cope with two versions of myself? I asked, sobbing. My father hugged me, and the doctor said it was a little more complicated. The disease was progressing, and there were 24 personalities inside me. I guess I was nervous. But after this news, I could only laugh. I'd loved acting all my life, and now I had my own theater inside my head. I don't know how I got over this news. It helped a lot that my parents were around, and I was constantly getting calls from Kevin and Marie and the other guys. I had to go to the Faculty of Theater Directing, so as not to provoke illness. But I realized that the theater was and will remain my love and inspiration for me. Well, of course, it's not without good jokes, that if someone does something wrong, I'll play the show for them myself. Fortunately, I did feel better over time. Did you like the story? Like and subscribe to the channel, and never lose your inner self.
Hi, my name is Kate. I'm 14. Have you ever sacrificed your health because of your own fear? Personally, I'm not afraid of heights, spiders, rats, and the dark. The only thing that really scares me is dentists. 3 years ago, I was at an appointment, and I was so scared that I vowed never to go to the dentist again. Watch this video to the end and find out how my fear of dentists worked out for me. I just love candy, chips, soda, and chewing gum. I know that they're harmful, but I cannot resist, and I often forget to brush my teeth. I must have been overindulging in my sweets that day. During the lesson, I felt that my tooth was beginning to hurt. I often have a toothache. This is all because of cavities and my love of junk food. My mother says that by the time I'm 20, all my teeth will fall out and I'll look like an old woman. I was hoping that the pain would subside as usual in a couple of hours, but this time the tooth decided to take revenge on me for the mountains of chips and liters of sweet soda. When I got home, the pain was even worse. I refused dinner and sat in my room all night. My mother asked me if I was all right. I had to lie and say that everything was fine. I didn't like to lie to my mother, but if she found out that I had a toothache, she would immediately drag me to the clinic, and this was the worst thing in the world. Do you often have to lie to your parents? During the night, the pain became completely unbearable. I was ready to bite my pillow to keep from screaming at the whole house. Of course, there was no question of sleeping. Good thing I remembered the pills. I would take a painkiller and would be fine. Trying not to make any noise, I went to the kitchen. Here was the first aid kit. I would finally feel better, but so busy looking for a cure that I didn't hear my mother's footsteps. Oh no, she would guess now. It was good I hit upon the idea of saying that I just decided to drink water. Mom left, and I took the entire package of painkillers with me and went back to my room. I went to bed and tried to sleep because I didn't have to feel this terrible pain in my sleep. The pills didn't work. In desperation, I drank 2 more, although in the instructions it was stated that excessive dosage may start a spasm in the stomach. I didn't care what happened to my stomach as long as my teeth stopped hurting. I didn't sleep until the morning. I felt like my brain was just being drilled through. At school, I didn't think straight. My cheeks started to twitch. The pain became even sharper and stronger. My eyes were so terribly dark that I thought I was going to faint. I was running a temperature and my stomach ached from the medication. After class, I asked my friend Mary to walk me home. The shortcut seemed like a marathon. My friend immediately noticed that something was wrong with me. I complained to my friend about the pain. Mary told me to go to the dentist right away rather than eat too much anesthetic. What a great advice. I'd rather be in pain forever and eat nothing but pills than sit in a dentist's chair. Mary walked me all the way to the door. We said goodbye. My vision was so blurry that I couldn't get the key in the lock until the 5th time. My mother must have guessed something, although I again refused to eat and quickly slipped into my room, trying not to turn my sore cheek to my mother. I spent the entire evening trying to distract myself from the pain. Drawing, texting with a friend, watching movies, even doing my algebra homework, but nothing helped. How do you deal with pain? I had a chemistry project to prepare for, but I couldn't think of anything but my tooth. The exam I'd been dreading a week ago now seemed like nothing. My thoughts were racing, I couldn't concentrate, my gums were twitching unbearably, and my cheek was terribly hot and throbbing. I took the pills again, and the pain subsided, only to torment again. I threw myself on the bed and buried my face in the pillow. I didn't know what to do. I just lay there and cried quietly so my mother wouldn't hear. I needed to stop the hysteria. Tears couldn't cure a tooth. Barely opening my eyes from the explosive pain in my head, I got on the internet and started looking for a way to cure the tooth on my own. I was afraid of injections and I didn't know how to do them. Compresses would be difficult, but rinsing would be just right. Now I just had to run to the pharmacy and everything would be fine. I didn't dare to go at night. My mother was a very light sleeper. She would definitely wake up and catch me, which meant that I would not escape the dentist. I would have to wait until the morning. I didn't sleep a wink before dawn, but I did figure out a way to trick my mother. I pretended that I was going to school, but I went around the parcel and hid in the backyard, waiting for my mother to leave for work. I was afraid to go straight to the pharmacy. There was nothing worse than meeting my mother on the way back. 5 minutes seemed like an eternity. At last she was gone. The way was open. I quickly ran to the pharmacy for the solution and returned home like a bullet. Yes, the solution was not cheap. For this money, I could have bought 2 kilos of my favorite sweets. Although, I guess I was done with the sweet stuff. Would you be able to give up your favorite food for health? I prepared the solution according to the instruction, thoroughly rinsed my teeth every 3 hours, but there was no effect. My cheek was swollen like popcorn, and I was beginning to think that something was moving under my tooth, as if some nasty worm had taken up residence in the gum and was gnawing at it. I felt insanely lousy, and besides, I had a fever. In the evening, my mother came to my room. I was just about to take my pills, and I managed to hide them under my pillow. My mother asked me if I was all right. I nodded in response. It was a good thing her phone rang and she went into the kitchen. After all, I couldn't talk anymore. It was too painful. My tongue was constantly probing the sore tooth. It seemed to me that something was oozing out of it. My mother was already dozing in her room, so there was nothing to stop me from going down to the bathroom and looking at my long-suffering tooth. Oh no! What was it? Above the tooth was a huge abscess. It wasn't here last night. When I got back to my room, I couldn't sleep. I was terribly disgusted to realize that I had some kind of purulent muck in my mouth. I would never eat the damn candy again. I went online to read about abscesses. I wish I hadn't. It turned out that pus from the inflamed gums could get inside the jaw and then into the brain and cause a terrible infection that led to death. I was terrified. I didn't know if it was true, but it sounded very creepy. Of course, only a doctor could answer all my questions, but I never went to the clinic. Apparently, I only had one chance to get rid of the pain. I crept back into the bathroom. The fever and pain made me dizzy. Only now did I feel that I hadn't really eaten for 3 days. My stomach growled with hunger so loudly that it almost woke my mother. That's all. It was now or never. It was very scary, but I was more afraid of the dentist. Taking aim, I quickly stuck the needle into the hated abscess. I guess I overdid it out of fear. The pain was so bad that I forgot everything and screamed at the whole house. I felt dizzy and my mouth tasted blood and something else very unpleasant. My vision suddenly darkened. The last thing I saw was my mother's confused face as she opened the door. I woke up in the clinic and almost died of fright. I was sitting in the dentist's chair. A nurse leaned over me and asked if the anesthetic had worked. Only now did I realize that the tooth did not hurt, and I was ready to kiss the girl from joy. The next 2 hours were not the most pleasant of my life, but I was willing to put up with anything to forget about that tooth forever. By the way, it was not painful or scary, but rather a shame that I was afraid as a little girl and ate candy for years instead of watching my health. The doctor said that in no case should I pierce abscesses myself. I was very lucky that my mother heard me and took me to the clinic in time. Otherwise, nothing good could come out of my irresponsibility. Now I will pay more attention to my health and visit the dentist more often. After all, if I didn't leave it to the last, then sleepless nights and nightmarish pain could have been avoided. And my mother was very scared for me. If you like my story, then put a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. Stay healthy and seek medical help on time.